Welcome to the Open Mic Podcast Show with Mike Midgley.
Hi and welcome to the Open Mic Podcast, and in this episode 11 we're going to be talking about the entrepreneur's journey. And this is one of my favourite topics. It was where we really get down and drill down into real life entrepreneurs, the journeys that they take, the paths that they take. And there's no theory in this. This is sort of real life journey, real life experiences. And I'm really excited to be joined by two serial entrepreneurs on this podcast show today who are really driving down that road of success. So I hope that the audience are going to get some real value from that. So a big Open Mic Podcast welcome to Lucy Barrow and James Abbott from Mix and Twist, a Leeds-based award-winning bartender and event company. Welcome, guys. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, good to have us on.
Yeah, good to be here.
Absolutely. And so I've got to ask, obviously been nearly a couple of months since we won the Independent Business of the Year award at the Yorkshire Choice. So how's life been with Mix and Twist since then?
Well, big things. So we've recently moved into new premises. Really cool, much bigger for us, gives us the ability to take on much larger events.
Brilliant.
Absolutely brilliant for us. It has the whole team involved in one place. Speaking of the team, got a new event manager who starts.
So we're expanding up and driving up.
Yeah, extra people on that. And really, we're almost having a refocus on to larger and bigger events just to help drive us forward and reach those goals that we want to reach. And yeah, the awards have been a big push for that, and it's given us a lot of awareness, which is really cool.
Awesome. I know we're all excited on the night, Lucy, on that, and there was some lots of dancing and lots of drinking going off at the award.
In true Mix and Twist style.
Absolutely.
It was a really good night. We really enjoyed it, and it was a huge surprise as well. So it was good.
But thoroughly deserved. I know how much work you guys put in it, and I think just before we go on, guys, for the new listeners to the show, this entrepreneur's journey part is really showing you both sides of that. You see all these success people, a lot of the American A-listers on there, and some of the UK B-listers are trying to copy in some ways. Arguably you could even say we're one of those, following that sort of mentor of content creation. But they all talk about the successes, but there's a lot of grind in this. So we're going to give you both sides of it. We're going to give you the downside of it, the challenges, the pain points, and we're going to give you some of the highs and successes. I'm sure you guys have got some stories for the listeners today.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Lucy, to just sort of segue nice in there, we talked about in true Mix and Twist style. So give us a little bit of background for those who don't know about Mix and Twist as the bartender and the bartending and the event company in Leeds. Just give us a little bit of background, who you are, what you do, who you serve, and a little bit more so we can also give you a little bit of a plug.
Yeah, sure. So we've been going since 2012. James started the business, and we are a mobile bar company. So we go out to events and provide a bartending service. But with a real focus on interesting drinks, nice cocktails, and sort of premium service. We use a lot of flair bartenders who are like the typical juggling bartenders, like Tom Cruise. And yes, we're all about wow factor.
Brilliant.
And fun and just making great events really. So we do anything from corporate events, private parties, weddings, birthdays, anything really. Anywhere where you might need a bar and there isn't one already.
I've got to ask, what's the craziest thing you've seen on a mobile bartendering event?
Probably one for you.
Keep it clean as well.
I was going to say we not so much anymore, but we used to do a lot of hen parties, and when you've got 30 hens in a cabin and a bartender locked in.
Oh dear.
The things that can go on in the hot tubs and not myself.
So
pause there, but we've had stories back from the bartenders.
Tune in after 9 p.m. after the watershed for the rest of that story.
Parental guidance.
No, awesome guys, and it's a pleasure to have you on because it's such an awesome brand, and it's just such an awesome way that you guys put things together. And I've seen firsthand some of the real experiences when you've done for the the major motor groups and things like that. The way you really sort of make those parties come alive. So that's a great way. But for the podcast today, we're really talking about the entrepreneur's journey, and from my side, both in our agency side and our coaching side, we get asked a lot. Am I an entrepreneur? Can they be born? Are they manufactured? Can it be trained? Should I go to business school? And I suppose there's different views on all of that, and what people, believe is what they believe, and really it's drilling down to get your experiences. So really, to get this show really started, and for the audience's benefit, how did you get into being entrepreneurs? Because you certainly qualify for those. You're absolute up there with it, and there's the true real McCoy. So how did you get into becoming an entrepreneur? Was it by accident? Did you fall into it? Just give us a story, and for both of you, I'd love to sort of get that scene set about how you maybe left whatever you did and then became involved and went down that track.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I look back now and it seems like an obvious route, but back then it definitely wasn't. So I was the kid selling juice and old toys at the end of my driveway, a little stall set up. I got into home brewing, so alcohol's always been part of life, and I'd be putting it into 2-litre bottles and selling it at school. Yeah. Maybe not the best long-term business plan, but...
Did you get caught though?
No, I didn't. I'd be selling them, £2 for 2 litres. Bargain. And then went to uni, but still had no idea what to do. Yeah. Absolutely not. Although I did business at uni, I just kind of had general interest in it. I never thought about being an entrepreneur. It wasn't until the final year of uni there was one of the modules called personal development, which is one of the reasons why I'm so focused on personal development now.
Absolutely.
Because it made me sit and look at where I want to be, and it needed you to put together a strategy plan to help your career. Yeah. And I was like, I don't fit into any of these. I like accounts, but I don't want to be an accountant. I like the marketing, but I don't want to be. And I couldn't find my place. And I'm like, I know where I want to be. I want to be in all of it. Yeah. And I was like, of course, it's the entrepreneurial route. And I looked at the characteristics of an entrepreneur, and I was like, that is me, and it's that. And from there, I thought, what skills and qualities have I got? And bartend part time. Yeah. And I was like, is there a way to put this sort
do what you love
together?
And do what you enjoy and do what you know.
And it kind of it built from there really. And then it's for me, entrepreneurship, it's more of a mindset of wanting to do things differently and change things and keep moving forward and developing.
Absolutely. And Lucy, your story into entrepreneurship, how did that materialise, and really give us some background on that?
Sure. So my background is primarily marketing. Yeah. I worked for a couple of big corporates and kind of worked my way up at those places. Moved into sort of roles that were more events and sales based as well. So I felt like I sort of had this strong experience to then sort of go forward into other things. So when I first met James, the company was really small, and James was completely on his own. Yeah. And I actually got offered another job for better pay at the same time. And
well, we'll come on to that, because there's a great statement, and I know you guys may have heard me this, but for the benefit of the audience, people say to me, why become an entrepreneur? And half of the time it's because you can work double the hours for half the pay than you could go and get in a real job, if that sort of thing. But if you feel caged like you do, but absolutely. So.
It's true, but I had these two sort of ways my life could go, and I had mix and twist. Going and working for James felt like a massive risk.
Yeah,
it was a very small company. I mean, turning over about 40k a year at that point. Yeah. But I just knew, sort of in my heart, that it was a great business model, and that with my input as well, we could really scale that business
and get some added value in there.
And I mean, 6 months later, James made me a director and a shareholder, which was amazing.
Best decision I've made so far.
Absolutely.
I kind of stumbled into being an entrepreneur, to be honest, and I mean, obviously since then I've got my own projects and things, but it was encouraged by James. James kind of pulled those sort of skills and values out of me, and it's only a few years ago that I realised that I actually really want to run my own businesses and things like that. So I was a bit slower than James and sort of fell into it really.
Yeah, but I think again, if you're listening at home or you're listening in your car, to this sort of podcast, you think about this. There's maybe two different entries here. Coming out of uni, following the passion that you love. I think the thing I pick out for you, James, is you didn't feel you want to be caged, into that sort of one trick pony of either an accountant, as you said, or something else. And for your side, Lucy, I know you said you sort of were a little bit later than that, but credit where credit's due, and for all those who are out there, maybe as Lucy was in a corporate job, and whether you classify that as cubicle nation or whatever you want to do that, you took the risk, you identified it, and that's equally as equally as much credit than actually sort of saying, hey, I don't want to be caged and I want to go out and do this. So it's there, and that's an entrepreneurial spirit. And you think about where you are in your life today. For the listeners, are you in cubicle nation? Are you stuck with something? Are you thinking, do I take the leap? Well, yeah, you've got to do your planning, you've got to do your processing, you've got to do your risk assessments. You may have families, mortgages, things like that, and they've all got to be considered. But ultimately, take the step. You wouldn't have had the opportunity, Lucy, if you hadn't taken the step. And that's the first maybe strike of the match that says, maybe you weren't repelling from corporate, but maybe what you were saying is that I found my way, and a lot of people wouldn't have taken that step. So that's awesome.
I think one really important lesson that I would say from that is that you need to learn to trust your gut.
Yeah.
And my sort of on paper and head was sort of going, this is a big risk. Can you afford to take this risk if it doesn't pay off? But following my gut really paid off, and I've tried to make decisions like that. Moving on from there. Yeah,
there's a quick thing that I've done. I've done this for over 25 years, and there's actually an old bus coach operator who I used to do as one of my first earliest mentors. And he said, whatever decision you're making, whether it's relationship, business, whatever, he says, think it through. Don't make snap decisions. He says, go to bed at night. He says, get up first thing in the morning. He says, 6 o'clock, whether it's middle of November and freezing or nice and light in the summer. He says, get up at 6 o'clock in the morning or 5:30 and then make look at the decision there. And he says, you look at it in the true light of day. You don't get distracted by, what's on the radio or on your personal development audio book, or you don't get distracted by any excitement in the office or doing a deal first thing in the morning where you can maybe making a decision from the wrong angle. And that's exactly right. That's your gut. You're up there. Maybe you or your family's not up. You're getting up, and it's there in your gut. Should I do this or shouldn't I do this? And that's a great barometer that I've used on many occasions. And touch wood, most of them have rocked up on the 777 type of thing on there. But you get the odd ones wrong. So that's a great backstory, and I really appreciate you sharing those ways into entrepreneurship. And I think it segues in nicely, guys, to talk about the hard yards. As I say, you see a lot of these motivational speakers. You might be watching this on YouTube now. You might be listening to it on the podcast in the car. And there's a lot of success people stood in front of the Lamborghinis, the villas, and going to these events, speaking on stages in tens or fives of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people on the lists. But there is a downside to it, and I really want to start there, not from a negative point of view, guys, but really that crazy life of entrepreneurship. Really want to talk to you about the hard yards, the long hard yards that you've walked, and there's some of the challenges and you faced, because if you get that understood, it isn't all glamour. As I said, we talked earlier about working 80 hours for 40 hours pay, or sometimes not even getting paid at all, and we've all been there at some point in the past. So talk to me about some of the challenges you've had on this entrepreneur's journey.
We've had a few sort of, I can't swear, can I, but oh no moments.
We'll deal with the flip of that being the aha moments, the positives, but the oh no moments, yeah.
I think one really important lesson we've learned is that you need to have a really great team around you to be able to grow a business. And there was a period of time where we grew by 300% in like 3 years, didn't we? But because we'd never done it before, we didn't quite have the kind of knowledge to sort of start putting things into place to deal with that growth.
Yeah.
And I remember one sort of winter's day, our accountant coming round and being like, "You're going to run out of money," and that was a scary moment, wasn't it?
Realization of it.
It was we didn't have the experience to foresee it, because we were right in the middle of a busy Christmas season, so there was lots of money coming in. But what he was talking about was January.
Yeah, and all the costs.
We didn't have the experience to know that we had to save that money and put it aside in order to, it was a huge learning curve. But we all hands on deck. We got loads more sales in, didn't we? We just absolutely smashed through it, and everything was fine. But he actually told us after that when he left the office, he turned around to our business coach and said, "We're going to be closing this business in January." And
who's going to make the call to them?
Yeah. So that was
interesting.
It's a great story to tell, because I think you need these these important lessons, you know, to grow from and experience from, because now we've always got money in January.
You're budgeting.
Don't make that mistake twice.
No, and I think that's a great one. And, you know, I think one of the key things that I pick out there that, James, you can maybe validate is know your numbers. And, know your budget, know your numbers.
Absolutely.
And because, like you say, you're sometimes that busy working in the business, you're not working on it, and then you think
because you're busy, you've got money, but
absolutely.
True.
And there's a great saying that I use, and again, guys, you might want to write this down, or if you know, I'm not saying pull over if you're in the car or anything like that, but you know, you've got to do a lot of winter thinking in summer. You know, so even though the sun's shining like it is in glorious today, and it's out there, you know, the colds come in, and that's in business. It cycles. You know, you get plenty of cash or plenty of sales, but sometimes it's a little bit tighter. So know your numbers. Get firm on them, know what you want to do, and you can keep going from there.
I think just the other little thing I'd add to that is that if we didn't have at that moment in time such a great sort of team around us, we had an amazing accountant and a really good business coach, we wouldn't, I don't think we'd have maybe got through it, because we wouldn't, it's having those types of people around you that sort of, although you should be striving to learn finance and things like that, but filling the gaps in the meantime with people around you that know the stuff is really important.
And it, absolutely, Lucy. And it's no crime to say I need help. And you know, like you say, if you've got skill gaps in your business, that's a great tip that Lucy's put in there. That's diamond. You know, look at where you're strong, look at where you're weak, and don't be fearful to hire in or take that expertise. And there's so many different places you get mentorships. You know, your local LEPs that do, you know, mentors and various things that you can go with. You don't have to pay for coaches or advisors, but certainly, you know, as you're growing, get the right advice in the business and move forward.
It's something I've read in a book recently. You wouldn't expect a professional sports player to go out and operate in the sports world without a coach. So why do you think you're going to be in business? Might have even been you that said that, Mike. I can't remember where I got my source from, but it stuck with me that it's like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, professional people do that, you know, and I think the example, James, is something like, you know, Rory McIlroy or Serena Williams, whether they're golfers or tennis players, they have coaches. Actually, are they a better golfer than the coach? Probably. You know, Rory McIlroy is a better golfer than the actual, you know, the coach that's coaching him. But they're observant. They've got that objective view. They can stand back. They can look at the swing or or whatever it would be. And there's different analogies around that. But it's also an example and one that, you know, the sports industry gives so many references to business. You know, in performance, because, you know, why are we in business? We want to be successful. We want to grow. We want to develop. We want to serve. But we want to be successful. And, you know, it's not all about the money, guys, and I understand that, but it certainly helps. And, you know, we're not here to be a non-profit. I mean, if you are a non-profit, some of the disciplines can help you as well, you know, because you're not selling products or services, you're really selling the story and the backstory to get the charity donation or the benefactors. So it's still the same principle. So that's interesting, and thanks for sharing, because it is okay to stick your hand up and say, we messed up. You know, and it's a starting point that, you know, you stick your hand and say, I've messed up. So thanks for sharing those, guys. And not always easy reminding yourself of the pain, but it drives you on. So on a more lighter note, James, help us to understand some of the better successes. Lucy's covered quite a few of the heartaches there. We'll get a positive spin on this, and you know, the entrepreneurial side of, you know, the positive side of entrepreneurship, you know, because you put the risks in, risk and reward sits in the same garage or the same space. You know, what's been in it for James and Lucy as Mixing Twisters from the success side?
Yeah, so I mean, Lucy mentioned a little bit about our growth. The growth that we've had has been phenomenal. I think it's a little bit, it was more like 400% growth over 4 years. I think we did it every year in a row as we were growing and growing and growing. Now, although that comes with its challenges with cash flow and building teams, what that does to you as a person and how that develops you with your personal development is just another level. I mean, the things that you learn and the feelings that you get, it's that roller coaster ride. Although you're riding the highs and lows, to get from the lows back up to those tops, it makes you feel, I mean, I don't want it to come across bad, but it almost gives you an invincibility shield. It's like, oh, there's that issue, fine, I can deal with that. Did you see what I dealt with last week? Yeah. And it brings you, and it's that resilience that you keep feeding on yourself that helps you when you set these big goals. You can look back at your past and say, oh yeah, well I hit that goal, and I hit that goal, then I can hit that goal.
Motivation to build on.
And it's that general ongoing of peace of mind and happiness that I've done it before, so I can do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. And just before I move to Lucy on that, James, I know we share a liking for the same type of authors in some of the books that we read, and Malcolm Gladwell, Tipping Point is an example.
Yeah.
What would you say the tipping point success for Mix and Twist? Obviously we've got a 300% growth, which is awesome, but what was that bit that you thought, we can do this, we've maybe passed that initial stage and we can go on it, and then eventually you become award winners and grow your business 300%. Was there a specific moment that maybe the listeners could sort of listen or identify for?
I'd say, we've had lots of mini ones, but I really feel like we got on the train and the brakes got ripped out, and it would almost be harder to fail rather than succeed. I think it was last summer, sort of the start of last summer. Still very iffy. We were coming out of the iffy time over because we have quite a seasonal work, so the first 4 months quite low. So last year, first 4 months, still getting by, watching the cash going. Come on, we needed that sale that week. Yeah. And then it kind of hit summer, and then it went, and the bookings were flying in, and we were just more comfortable with cash. We built up a cash reserve for the down season we've had this year, which we've never done before. Yeah. And that's when it felt like we just had everything in place. And that is not one thing. People can't. There's no silver bullet. It's spending years and it's not even time that way. It's the amount of hours you put in to build. And
the hours are a lot
marketing, the reputation side. The team, I know we've mentioned it a few times, but there is nothing. I was nothing in those first 2 years, struggling by doing everything not very well. And it's not until you build the team and everyone's doing what they're doing well, everyone picks a section and they do it well, it's the company just, it's a beast on its own then, and then it drives forward. But to get to that point, it's the work involved is...
Sometimes you don't realise, but it is all the hard yards, all the hours, all the success, and it layers and layers and layers, and it just tips. So that's a great example. Thanks for sharing. Lucy, for your experience in Mix and Twist over the last sort of 4 or 5 years or whatever, where did you see it move? Was it a similar example, or was there another example you could share for the listeners to sort of keep an eye and ear out for? Is there something sort of rumbling in the business that maybe they think it's normal, but you could draw on? Or is there anything like that you could?
I'd echo everything else that James has already said, but for me, when we've started spending a lot more time, or we've just opened a new office in London. Wow. Because we're doing a lot more work in London than we were before. We're sort of 50-50 north and south now, covering the whole of the UK. So when we started trying to up that work in London, I started spending a lot more time there. And very, very quickly realised that people already know us by reputation. Excellent. Which is mind-blowing from where we were 3 years ago. And for me, that even now, when we've got over 200 5-star reviews, and when one of those comes in, I get an absolute sort of little flutter. I love it.
Just a constant reminder for you. You do a good job.
It's when you've completed somebody's special occasion and made it the best party they've ever had, or the best wedding the guests have ever been to, or things like that. There's just no greater feeling, our customers are just blown away by it, aren't they? And it's lovely. It's really nice.
Awesome. No, that's brilliant. Thanks for sharing those. And like I say, the downsides are, if the positives can outweigh the downsides, we're on the right way and they're on the right track. So for somebody considering entrepreneurship, for somebody considering it, is there any advice you'd want to sort of give out there? Would you, in your words, based on your journeys, your experiences, somebody comes to you today, and I know, Lucy, you've been doing a little bit of mentoring and giving back into the audience and to the community now, and James, I know you're sort of big on that sort of stuff as well. What are you saying to people about becoming entrepreneurs? Are you saying go for it? Are you saying, whoa, look at the economy? Give us some feedback.
I feel like it'd be irresponsible to just go. At the moment there's a big fashionable push for entrepreneurship. It's fashionable. I think it's Gary Vee that says it all the time. It's like, it's the new rock stars. Like, everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, and it can set people up for failure with expenses and time and stress. I'd say look at it carefully, because you can't go into it for just the money. There's other things. Go be an investment banker or something. If you just want money, sales. If you were a salesperson, purely salesperson, you could make quicker money. It's the more long term. It's the personal development. It's the growth. It's the mindset of putting everything in to your passion
and giving it your all.
You've got to. It's the people involved as well. You're not just on your own. You need to be there looking at building a team. And if all those things excite you and you almost feel like you couldn't do anything else, if the idea of sending off a CV to someone makes you feel like you're in a cage, then they're the right signals.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. What about yourself, Lucy? What type of advice will you be giving at the moment?
One thing that's becoming more and more sort of prevalent for me recently is that more women are going into that sort of path in life, which is really exciting, I think.
Brilliant.
I mean,
Absolutely.
the amount of speaking events that I go to, and even now it's heavily weighted to men, but it's because not enough women are putting themselves forward.
Why do you think that is? Do you think they're just not confident, or do you think that they're suppressed for so?
I think it's a mixture of both. I think there's a confidence issue. And sort of fitting into those sort of stereotypical gender roles of, the woman is the caregiver at home and the man goes out to work. We're starting to break through those stereotypes now.
Brilliant.
Which is really exciting. So.
And there's more women on board, your Karen Brady's, etc., all that type of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's just about really encouraging women that you can do whatever you want in your life. And it's the same thing as what James said. If those kind of sort of entrepreneur things make you feel,
that gut makes you feel right,
excited and like, oh yeah, I want to do that, then they just need to go for it. So that's why I'm mentoring young women at the moment, because I just want them to kind of have the best sort of start in life, really.
Fantastic. Absolutely, Lucy. And I think that commitment that you're giving to coach women and specialise that and giving them confidence is phenomenal. And are you coaching any men at all, or would you do that at all? Or are you
Of course I would, because I'm about equality. But it's but I just feel that I've just happened to stumble across a couple of young women who really just need a bit of sort of mentoring coming out of uni and a bit of hand holding and stuff, and I'm really enjoying that because it's nice seeing them start to achieve their own goals.
Absolutely. And I think realistically, James, you mentioned a couple of things there, and Lucy, you've touched on them and echoed them as well. You mentioned it's not just about the money, just don't get attracted to the money. There's better options to increase your bank balance and entrepreneurship. There's a great saying by Jim Rohn, it's one of my favourites, and that is to set yourself a goal to be a millionaire. Not necessarily for the money, because that becomes automatic, but what it makes of you to actually achieve it. And that's, I think, is the real thing that I pulled out of what you said.
I didn't mention much of the reward in that, because it's like almost in the morning, but the rewards are there. I couldn't imagine doing anything else with my life. The satisfaction that entrepreneurship, even with all the toils and the hard work and everything and the stresses, there is not another thing in this world. If someone said, I was thinking this the other day, if someone said, here's 10 million, take it now
and retire,
right? But you are never allowed to do business again, I would not take that money. It wouldn't be worth it for my life. Just pointless to me. I feel like I'd ended it. So,
and you wouldn't enjoy the money anyway.
No, what would I do? I'd want to invest it in businesses. I couldn't. I'd just have to sit there and spend it. Not me.
And I think from your side, Lucy, there, what I picked up is, I know we talked heavily around the women and the coaching, but we've not really talked about niches. But I suppose it couldn't be entrepreneurship without talking about niches. And you found that niche. You found that, and like you'll coach, you'll mentor and coach males or upcoming guys or girls out of university. But you found that niche to sort of really find your passion to help women coming out there. And talk to me a little bit about that. Do you think it's better to sort of focus on a niche when you love something, or do you think it can be done at a wider range? What do you think? Are you in and out your comfort zone more, or on a niche, or where do you feel more comfortable? Because you're doing a speech about something that's totally out of your comfort zone, aren't you?
Yes, that's a development thing though. I made a commitment this year to start saying yes to things that scare me. So
awesome.
If I've been asked a lot to speak this year, and I've said yes to all of them. But I do think it's important to kind of stick into your niche, but also explore other niches occasionally. I guess that would be my take on it.
No, that's great. That's great advice. Well, look, I've really enjoyed having you on the show. Time flies by. If you want to check out Mix and Twist, you can check them out at mixandtwist.co.uk. That's mix, A-N-D, and twist.co.uk. Or you can find them on Facebook, I believe. It's at facebook.com/mixandtwistuk.
Yeah.
Is that the best way to get there? shoot you up a message. I'm sure these guys would be happy to get that sorted for you and answer any questions you've got on the delightful industry that is cocktails and things like that. So thanks ever so much for adding some serious value to the audience. You know, for you listening at home, if you are on the fence about entrepreneurship, you've got two very different angles here. There's a third dimension with me here and sort of my experiences that I've not talked too much about. But thanks ever so much for being on the show. It's been absolutely awesome. And if you want to learn more about entrepreneurship, if you want to send us a message, you can leave us a comment on the channel below, on the blog if you're listening to it or watching it there, or use our favourite communication channel, which is Twitter. If you send your question using the hashtag #TheOpenMic, as in the open mic, either myself or my team will get that answered. If you've got a question for Lucy and James, I'm sure we'll get that passed on, or you can, as I say, get them on facebook.com/Mix and Twist UK. And that's just about it. As always, have a great week. I hope you've had some value. Get in the game, go do the hustle, but more importantly, guys, go make it happen. Have a great week. We'll catch up with you on the open mic next week.
You have been listening to The Open Mic, brought to you by The Success Hub. To find out more and to get the resources we have mentioned in this podcast episode, simply visit blog.thesuccesshub.io and view the podcast section. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to catching up with you in our next episode. This podcast and associated materials is published under copyright to The Success Hub. All rights reserved. No reproduction of this material is permitted.